Thank you so much, the MC, for doing the honors. My name is Randeep. I manage the operations for Hono. I have Sunith with me. He is partner and head people, performance and culture with KPMG, and Sandeep from NEI Industries, CHRO. NEI Industries part of CK Birla Group, right? So the topic I think is absolutely clear. And I would rate this topic as very sensitive, actually. Because all of us assembled in this room looking at technology solutions or would have bought some technology solutions. I think the one question that hits every HR professional is, what did you make the technology do at the end of the day, right? So TCOs, what are the kind of results? What are the kind of impacts that you drive with technology? I think that's the toughest question that every HR professional goes through. Right? And we have some discussion that probably could be done around that topic as well. But yes, we will focus on the real impact that technology could create. And I think we've got enough experience, sitting right next to me, who could talk about what is it that we could measure, what is it that is tangible for us to be looking at when we are implementing any technology solution. But we'll focus our discussion more on people technology. I mean, if I have agreement on that, because otherwise, technology tends to become a very large, ocean, and the discussion could go, anywhere. So, I mean, just to set the context, and get into this very exciting discussion is that from the experience that I have had so far, in tech transformations that I've led for the last 21 years, all I know is that, until the technology doesn't become the value system in organization, you can't drive any impact, right? So if you were to plot or just visualize, I mean, each one in the room to visualize that, on x-axis, I have digital agility, and on y, you just try and plot the vision of management or what you're really seeking from technology. And you try to map where you as an organization or, the technology or being digital leader, where do you stand? So probably a low on both the axes, would just make technology a project, which is of no use, actually, right? So low digital agility, low in vision, not clear where we are heading for, just a project, right? You get on a medium axis, you reach somewhere as technology or digital being your language in organization, right? That's what we call. And finally, a very high on agility and vision takes you to technology or digital being value system in the organization. And that's where the real impact is. And that's where I think, I would not say struggle, but that's the real challenge when you actually try and see what impact technology leaves, for the business as a whole when you implement it, right, through the complete value chain. So my first start point or talk point will be to you, Sunith. I think you've seen enough of the industry. And I think most of the time I have seen organizations struggling with identifying what problem are they trying to solve when they're adopting technology, right? So ultimately leading to not showcasing any impact or just, shooting in the dark saying, okay, we are doing this, but we know where we are going, but we'll try and prove where we are going, right? So any thoughts, Sunith, there? I mean, just a conversation starter, I think we'll try and build after that, yeah.
Yeah, and Randeep, thanks for that. And isn't it great to be back here in person, 3 years later, yeah? Round of applause for being back in person out of the pandemic. More energy in the room, or people haven't had lunch. That's more like it. Look, Randeep, I mean, you've been an HR leader and an ex-consultant just like me, so we're from the community. Here's my thought process, and I remember getting exposed to HR technology or people technology early on, PeopleSoft. Also a little bit of SAP R3. Many people in the room may not remember what that is because now we're in the cloud world. And you said this could be a sensitive topic. So let me not try to be provocative for the sake of being provocative, but still maybe put out a little bit of, what are some mental models or myths that we tend to hold when we look at driving value. And yes, you said I've seen enough, but given the topic that is good enough, I think I'm still learning. And the more I see, the more I don't know. Here's my thought process. Two things. And again, it doesn't matter which industry, what size of industry, what are you trying to do. I think the first mistake we sometimes tend to make, and when I say we, I'm counting myself as part of the larger HR fraternity and community or the people technology community, is that we start thinking it's about the technology. Because but it's not. If you're looking at value, then you need to frame it as it's a business problem that we're solving for, not even a people problem. It could have a people dimension. Through that platform, you're trying to solve and increase employee experience, or you're trying to solve a productivity issue on the shop floor. And I'm sure Sandeep will have some interesting stories on that. Right. Or you're trying to do something on the sales side, enhancing customer experience, but enhancing it by making sure your sales force is engaged, connected, etc., etc. So I think framing that business problem is very important. That's the first thing. Second one is that, and I've often seen this, and sometimes I would cringe in those steering committees or pitch presentations when my client, who would be a very seasoned and experienced CHRO, far more erudite and wise than I was as a consultant to him or her, would want to say that when the question would be asked, so where's the dollar value? It would always be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which we know is kind of a little bit of a mission impossible. Right. So the idea is, I think you need to be a little more bold and state up front. Say that there's a hypothesis, this is what I'm going to do. I think that boldness needs to be there, and it has to be upfront, and which again brings back to that proverbial question. In many forums like this, we've talked about, is it HR's time to be on the business table? I would say to everyone in the hall, I think we ourselves don't give ourselves permission. We need to talk in the language of the business. So many times I would see, and just basis experience and with due respect, that there's the CIO or a CFO who's driving the main conversation, and many times, I guess it's changed now a bit, I would say, but again, not good enough, I would say, Randeep. Right. Is that, oh, you know what, we'll look at the HR package in wave 3. How many people have felt that in a room before? Raise your hands. Oh, no, first we'll do finance and supply chain and manufacturing. We'll look at HR later. Now, that's the mental model we need to break, and we need to break ourselves. That's the first thing to do if you want to create real value. Frame it as you're solving a business problem, and it's a business project, not a people technology project, and definitely, let's not call it an HR project. We are also solving for the business. Correct. So those would be my opening remarks. We'll happy to,
thank you so much.
Take some counter views and points later. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sunita. I think you've touched upon two very, very, very essential topics here, right? One is, of course, HR talking business language. I think there have been so many conferences that have been woven across this thought process. How can HR be part of business? I think, and the impact and value comes there, talking that language, understanding, imbibing the business model, and then looking at what could be the solutioning. I think that's a wonderful point.
One quick reaction.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should ask ourselves, how can HR be part of business? We should just say,
we are business.
We are business.
We are business, yeah.
We are business, end of story. Now let's start the conversation.
Yeah. But the punch storyline always has been right that way, and that's about to change as well. So, and the second part that you picked up on was, of course, you used word productivity, you used some other keywords as well. So I'll just want to pass on, to you, Sandeep. I think as NEI industries, and with the kind of experience that you've had in various industries, and now with manufacturing, with CK Birla Group, I think you've done some wonderful work on productivity and the thought process that runs in the organization, right? So if you could just, share that, and I think then we could start building on, what is the real, tangible, measurable impact that technology, can create, and you have created that in NEI industries, right? On to you, Sandeep. Yeah.
Thanks, Randeep, and very good afternoon to everyone. To me, the people and technology go hand in hand, and when we decided to, go for a HR technology, we had two questions in mind. Can we streamline our HR processes, which can give a better experience to our people? That was one. And the second was a bigger question, like, how we can help the business. We are a manufacturing, engineering, auto sector, and what we realized that we have a, absenteeism, and due to absenteeism, any organization would have that, and that is giving us, a big dent to our productivity. Around 3 to 4% of the productivity loss is there. How we can bridge those gaps? And of course, you have to have a baseline, the HRMS, and which is all the integrated softwares are there, and that is easing your life. And there also leakages are being plugged, because your attendance system is right, leaves are being put in right, and giving the experience to the employee, because you have everything digitalized. You have one click away, you can use every of your life cycle with your mobile phone. But this is the bigger issue. How do we solve that? And then we came up with a early information system kind of a model where we are working on a use case. We developed a software around, it was HR tool, HR initiative. And I think it is helping us. And how does it help? So when the shift ends, 1 year, 1 hour or 1.5 hour before we send out a message to everyone, who is coming, who is not coming. They respond to us, and when we see that the people are not coming for a particular line, we have a skill matrix been mapped with our system, with the HRMS system, and then we get an intelligence AI-enabled system which throws the inputs to the supervisor that these are the people available with this skill, and it's very easy for a supervisor or the manager, shift manager to deploy the right kind of people. Because ultimately it's very important that we produce and then we can sell. And I feel this was a good use case which we are even showcasing in our digital lighthouse application.
Great, Sandeep. Yeah, I know. I mean, you're going for the lighthouse audit as well for this. And with the limited, or of course, the kind of work that we did together, and this just comes from the thought process that one needs to lead when we are talking about business as a language. When we were doing the entire skill mapping activity with NEI Industries, of course, with Hono, I think there was a lot of thought process that went behind. You're looking at just skill mapping on position level and then looking at how could this be a primary and secondary skill and look at replacement logic, right? Which, of course, Hono built on an AI platform, which essentially at the end of it, the value that got derived from that skill was today in the organization, I think, you have the entire logic set for how skill-based replacements could be done for, key critical positions. So wonderful. I mean, that's where the tangible effect came, right? Wherein if you were looking at, 2 or 3 or a 4% productivity loss, I think today I have that early information as, you as an organization, that I can curb that loss, right? And I could look at how that amber turns to green, right? So that's wonderful. And I think that's the real business impact, right? Ultimately, I think it is productivity, performance, which are very closely, linked to the overall business impact. So productivity-wise, wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to add what Sunit said. We as HR professionals should decide what problem we are going to solve with this.
Correct.
Technology may be a fashion because every company is adopting, we should all. But I tell you, if you know the problem and it's a business problem you are solving, adaptation, adaptation becomes very, very easy. We all struggle in our change management when any technology has been deployed, and adoption becomes a challenge because 30%, 40%, 80%. I tell you, in our case, whatever we are big time into digital for last 3 years, and Industry 4.0, and a lot of things we are doing. Not only the manufacturing side, entire supply chain is digitized. Even the sales, how we can help the customers. So CRM is being built. So we are integrating the entire architecture. And, when problems are there and you are solving, you need to work much harder to make people adopt because they know it is in it for them. And that's become very easy,
Correct.
which I understand.
Correct. So, Ruth, any comments here or anything that gets triggered in your mind with this talk?
No, in the very, very pertinent examples shared by Sandeep. I think just what's triggering a thought is, so therefore, yeah, it's easy to say that you want to be bold, have the hypothesis, start speaking the language, but I guess the challenge happens in the how-to. I think in the how-to, my own experience, and again, I'm talking both in terms of what I did for clients and what I now do internally at KPMG. I think one of the other things that, and ultimately it keeps going back to mental models and our own beliefs. I think one thing we need to realize that if we framed it as it's a business problem we're solving for, it's a people dimension, and you're looking at, obviously, it's good that you're trying to solve through automation and technology. But remember, don't get stuck on, I want the perfect solution. I want something that is like the magic bullet, which is like a pink unicorn, or a purple one for that matter.
Yeah.
Now, I think we'll be frustrated, and we've all been in that part. In fact, I often tell my internal stakeholders now, and I used to tell clients, is that, look, don't try to have a wait for a perfect plan next week when you have a good one today and execute it well.
Right.
The question is today with cloud technology and with UX, UI, what do you need? You need to make sure that your stakeholders, your users, including people in the HR function,
Right.
they have a seamless, simplified experience. Beyond that, I'm sure there's enough fixes and interconnections and configurations and bolt-ons you can do. So I think that simplification, we tend to over-engineer sometimes. So that's another thing that we need to avoid. And my own experience is co-create, involve the business in it. Make them feel it's their project. Ultimately, they're the ones responsible for the people, right?
Right.
If you have a 20,000 workforce, a 100-member HR team is not managing all the 20,000,
Right.
just as an example. So that's one reaction. The second one is that, yes, I think, and that's more like there are many solutions out there. In fact, I would say that I may be wrong, Randeep, you would know better, but after fintech, HR tech and edu tech probably are the most
Absolutely.
happening
Yeah.
spaces, right?
Yeah.
So obviously there's a problem of plenty.
Yeah.
Curate those solutions well.
Right.
Otherwise, I've seen enough and more, you started with all the right intentions, but then you realize halfway down, oh, you know what, I don't think this is solving the problem, because
Correct.
you are looking for that one piece and then you're shopping around and there are lots of nice glitzy technology, maybe it's not for you. I would say look at what's fit for purpose for yourself, very, very important. And I made the point to you, I made it to another good friend of mine who was over here in the same space. And I personally feel, and I'm sure there's some other entrepreneurs and HR startups here in the hall, I think it's time we broke the notion that we need a stamp of a global platform to show that, we are doing the best. Wonderful. And I work in a global firm, of the India firm of a global international network. But I do believe that in the SaaS space, especially, the kind of innovation that I'm seeing in India today,
Right.
I remember seeing it when I used to work in China in 2013. So I think we need to be bold and make that statement as well. That, we're not an alternative to the big three. We are the big three now.
Absolutely.
So that's the other little bit of a call to action for folks such as yourselves.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Sunit, for this. In fact, for the experience that I have had, I have seen agendas getting diluted, when you're seeking perfection, right? Or you're seeking that global stamp, and, what you compromise in lieu of getting that global stamp is much more costlier to a business than actually driving any impact in business. So wonderful point. Wonderful. I think, Sandeep, you also had some viewpoints, and I've been discussing this, over the last 2-3 months as well with you, over the discussions that we've had. Something on performance that you were also trying to do, because performance management is, of course, a very overly convoluted topic right now, in the HR world. But I think you have tried to simplify it, right? And then drive business impact. So I think that will be interesting for, the entire group to, have a perspective on that, and let's see what your thought processes are.
In HR's, professional life, PMS is big thing. Like, everyone is doing it. None of would be away from that. And I, often ask, are we doing in right way? It is chasing people, do the goal setting and then the half-yearly reviews and then annual appraisal and then putting all those things this is a ritual we do every year. And last year we thought what are we doing and why are we doing? And we have a big, ambitions as a business from this year onwards we are all poised to grow at the rate of 25% CAGR. And it was very important how we are doing our PMS. Are this PMS is really helping the business or not? Because ultimately, you are seeing the people's performance, and we are evaluating. And we said, no, we will move from evaluating performance to managing performance. We have to manage everyone's performance. We cannot, allow anyone to perform less, because it will be impacting the overall business imperative and the objective. So that was a theme we started with, and we simplified it. We adopted this balanced scorecard process, and we said we will measure outcomes. If you recall, most of us, and I'm not saying everyone, in the goal setting activities, people measure, and they say I have done this, tick, tick, tick. Everyone is outstanding. Company results are not outstanding, and that is again a business problem. And I'm saying, what Sunit said, if we HR professionals, like leaders, if we start understanding business objective and trying to give some thought to give solutions, I think our respect and table on the boardroom would be very sure actually. And we said no outcomes to be measured, and there would be initiatives and activities you will doing to do that. And from half yearly, and half yearly was also a ritual, you just keep chasing your managers, they will not be bothered to even do the appraisal process. Annual, because the increment is linked, and people will will do religiously. So we said that will be periodic. So every quarter we will check. And very simple methodology we are adopting. We are saying Q1, what you have achieved, what did you miss? What are the action plan to cover that gap? What are the plans for the Q2? And what help you need from others? Very simple format. And I think it was I had a 2-day offsite last week. Very successfully we did. And I think it is also changing a culture, because we are a 76-year-old company. It is really helping people, because in any organization it will happen, it will become silo. It is my department's job, I will do it, I am responsible for my people. But the team is the peer team, and how you are engaging and collaborating and the breaking the silo. This is a big challenge with every one of us actually. So we are trying to do a very interesting thing, of course, we are digitizing this and tracking it. And our PMS process will be also linked with our LMS. So whatever gaps are coming, it is coming to the LMS system, which is throwing what the learning initiatives to be planned for the people. So this is how we are trying to transform.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Still journey is on.
I know. Yeah.
We have
Wonderful.
bit advanced stage, but I think we are trying to achieve this in a bit better manner.
Great. Now that also brings me to a thought point that in all this process automation, in all that we're trying to do on tech platforms, there is lots of data that is actually getting churned, right? So I think there are solutions around picking up that data, making some sense out of it. How do you build those analytics? Because that essentially also shows what is the impact that you're driving, right, as a technology solution that you've implemented in your organization. So there is a lot of data. We do a lot of predictives. We do a predictive on performance, or say a churn rate, or whatever, right, as an organization. But what's your thought, Sunit? I think because data at the end of the day also is becoming very critical, right? And I think that could directly impact or probably show the linkage of how business actually is profiting from whatever transactions that are happening. It could be performance. It could be simple transactions of absenteeism that you're actually now tracking through early information systems. So what's your thought? Sunit, I think this is also a very interesting hot topic, that could actually be linked up.
Yeah, it is. And I would say a couple of points on that, Randeep. I think in the past, there used to be this challenge that, we don't have enough data. We've only been on the system for 5 years, or we're still and especially if you're a startup or something, you've only been around for 3 years. So how do we draw some insights? I think today the technology is, and I'm not a data scientist or a data engineer, but today even small packets of data can be finessed through those algorithms, and the machine learns the algorithms learn pretty quickly. So I would say start early. Don't wait for the perfect data set. Yes, you need to have data integrity, but you can start looking at those insights. The other one is look at the insights and do something about it. I think that's the tougher one. I can tell you often, you're doing some predictive analytics on flight risk in your Salesforce, right, or you're doing some sentiment analysis of how a particular transformation is going well or not. And I can tell you, forget about the C-suite or the board or the others, but I often see HR leaders also dismissing it. No, that can't be our people. So I think in my introductions, it was talked about that I'm passionate about using human-centric design. Yeah, so be human-centric, be empathetic to what the data is telling you. So, because it's real people who may have responded to that, or your systems are telling you actually what people are doing or saying, or the way they're behaving.
Right, Sunit. Yeah.
Simple. Microsoft 365, right? The workforce analytics. Simple. Who's sending meeting invites to who, and how many people are pinging each other. That itself is available, I'm told, free of cost, for you to figure out some social network analysis.
Which is ONA,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without having any fancy tool to do it. So, but we need to be ready to believe the data when we see it. That's the bigger challenge.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah, but that's a great insight, because we in Hono also are doing a lot of work on generating actionable insights because data is there, you do predictive, but what are those actionable insights that could really be with the key decision makers to be doing something about what data is trying to throw open to you, right? So I think very good just to, we have 5 minutes and I want to open up for questions as well. The first thought process was, of course, have that hypothesis, be clear about it, look at the right technology. All that glitters is not gold. You don't need the global stamp, and choose your technology, look at the tangibles, work towards it, don't go for perfection. And then to, managing some tangibles like productivity of what you built as a case, Sandeep, which was beautiful, right? And then looking at what it is all churning is data, try and make some sense out of it for us to be driving as HR professional, some sort of tangibles or business impact that we could showcase, right, in forums like these or probably in our organizations is something that I take away from, this chat. But I think a lot of thought process would have triggered by now. Want to open it, to the audience with your permission, for any questions that you might have, for any one of us. Yeah, so we see a raise of hands. Yeah.
Hi. My name is Juhi, and I'm heading the talent acquisition with Max Life. My question will start with one example first I would want to quote. So for example, today I decide to buy a luxury shoes brand. For example, let's name Jimmy Choo. And when I went, because of course it's a reputed brand, and everybody's talking high about the brand, I went ahead, bought it. But when I started wearing it, I'm experiencing shoe bite, I'm experiencing a bit of discomfort, because everybody said it's a good brand, go for it. Now the same thing is happening when it comes to tech being incorporated in the organization. So I have invested a huge budget, and there's a lot of man hours being invested to buy a technology for human resource. Right. Adaptation is definitely a challenge, but while we are solving that out, something is not going correct or in the right direction when it comes to implementation. Whenever I have an issue, what I hear from the partner is, we'll fix it up with a bot. Let's introduce a bot. Let's fix it up. So it's like a Band-Aid or a cotton fix that I'm getting in my Jimmy Choo shoes, right? So what should be the organization's strategy now when the crores of investment and the man hours have already been made?
Okay, right.
I think you should take that, Randeep.
Oh, you want me to take up? Okay.
On the spot.
Okay, great. Okay. No, this is a wonderful question. I think Band-Aid solution is a good, example that you have given. But I think the key point that I would want to stress upon here is when you're picking up technology or choosing technology, you need to understand the strengths and weaknesses of technology, right? Processes come later. So that's the first choice that I'll make if I was in your position. If I've got influenced by 10 people who are using a technology which is supposed to be wonderful, does that really work for me? And do I really understand what I'm taking on in terms of the strengths and weaknesses of that technology? Because everything that you buy out, in tech is not perfect. You build it together. Even the providers and tech solution builders like us, we believe one size fits one, right? So if one size has to fit one, you have to tailor make it, right? And you have to fix it. And of course, the fixation comes through some, language that you're using, like let's introduce bot or whatever it is. But let me tell you, this is the phenomena that has to be managed in the true spirit of partnership. If you've made a choice, you need to, of course, I would not say live with the choice, yeah, but you need to make that choice work for you, right? And it's an equal partnership that happens with the service provider or the vendor and you as an organization. So of course, there are ways and means to patch it up. And at the end of the day, of course, yes, there will be some bit of tweaking, and I'll tell you where the major patchwork happens. I want to do my thing my way, right? And if I have to do some benchmarks, I'm not open to that. For example, not in your case, but I have seen that enough, right? So that's where the patchwork comes. Where you get into hard coding, you get into XYZ stuff and say, no, this is what needs to work for me, right? So that's where I think is the midway solution. And of course, the world operates on win-win, right? So I wish you all the best, right? Probably we can chat offline as well to understand your problem. But I think the first key point is understanding strengths and weaknesses of any technology that you take up, right? Thank you so much. I hope I've answered anything.
Just a comment, like, workplace technology, HR or whatever, is not a Alexa. You just plug in and just start playing, because you have to really build it. You have to partner. And I can tell you the amount of efforts the vendor would put in. As an organization, we have to put in much more efforts, Because if you are an old organization, you would have processes over the years. You must have made a lot of policies. You have to iron out, you have to streamline, you have to make it simple. Because if you want your life simpler, technology can help enabling that. But I think we have to decide whether we want our life simpler or not, because we have to make a lot of changes in our processes. So it's not like you have put something. I have seen even SAP failed in many of the organizations because organization was not ready for that. It is a robust, kind of enterprise solution. But so everywhere, I think any technology will not give you 100%, but you have to understand, what you need is delivering or not. I think that amount of efforts to be spent and research to be done.
I think that screen is saying time's up and it's turned red, but this is kind of like an Uber question, so let me give you a 20-second answer to everyone. I think shift the accountability back to yourselves. I think learn about the technology. It's important because otherwise the product seller will tell you and make it sound like Alexa. So the accountability is on us to be able to be discerning clients, right? That's what I'll leave us with.
Yeah, hi.
Are we allowed to last?
I am Afshan from HDFC Ergo, and I'm into business partner role. My question is for you, Sandeep. Okay, so you mentioned about quarterly assessment and evaluation. Okay, so here, there are organizations who are struggling for mid-year assessment and a successful annual appraisal. So what do you do with that data? You share with the business, and especially what do you do with the top performers and bottom performers of that quarter?
I think it would be good if we can meet offline, because I think time is up. But I can tell you, it is because when I said we are moving from evaluating and assessing the performance of the person rather than managing a performance, it means we are trying to see that we are as an organization achieving the business objectives. When we do Q1 review, all the leaders are sitting and they are presenting to each other. Normally, appraisal is being done by the boss. So it is not done by the boss. It's boss is sitting and other people are also sitting. And one, of your task or the objective is not being met, I'm sure there would be people who are also responsible. There are upstream and downstream connectivities there. Any activity you do, because in organization you can't do. You are not a sole soldier. You need collaboration and all. So I think it throws a better understanding where do we stand. It is just are we on course or not. So this is a checking in a much deeper way. And of course the data we talked about. So we are also tying up the financial data, how it is coming in a right way, because when you do appraisal, you don't have a right data. People just write anything. So we are just trying to plug that gap also, so that discussion is not long. It will take not more than 10 minutes. You are just yourself saying, because otherwise other person will call it out. You are saying it has been done, but I don't think it has been done. So you are trying to democratize the process, which is a healthy process, I would say, to have this.
Thank you so much, Sandeep, and I think we just call it off now. Thank you so much, guys.